Family. There is something sacred about the visions God gives us. They don't come wrapped in certainty. They come wrapped in destiny. And sometimes destiny looks a lot like disruption. You see, the moment God gives you a vision, He's not just giving you a picture. He's giving you permission. Permission to move, to rise, to become. But can I be real with you tonight? There's a tension we rarely talk about. The tension between what God showed you and what you're seeing right now. Because life would try to blur the vision. Delay would try to redefine it. Disappointment would try to dismantle it. But the question is, will you keep your eyes on what God said? Or will you settle for what life is showing? Because that vision, that vision is not just a dream. It's a divine assignment. And when you understand that, you stop negotiating with distractions. You stop entertaining doubt. You stop handing over the steering wheel of your purpose to people who were never meant to ride in your lane. So tonight we're stepping into a space where clarity meets courage. Where faith doesn't just speak, it sees. Let's talk about keeping your eyes on the vision God gave you. The vision is not random, it's revelation. Distractions are designed to make destiny feel like a detour. Vision requires warfare. Clarity doesn't mean ease. Your vision will often look impossible before it looks inevitable. Every vision from God comes with provision, but provision follows obedience. When God gives you a vision, He's not tossing out an idea to see what sticks. He's revealing a piece of His heart for your life. That vision, that dream, that thing that keeps tugging at you in the stillness of the night, it's not random. It's divine, it's heaven sent. And it carries weight because it carries assignment. You see, sometimes we think our visions are just ideas or ambitions. But when it comes from God, it's not just inspiration, it's instruction. And when heaven speaks, even if your surroundings don't make sense, you've got to listen. And here's the thing, revelation rarely comes in comfort zones. It often shows up in the wilderness, in the waiting, in the whisper. And if you're not paying attention, you might dismiss something holy because it came in a humble package. When God gives you a glimpse of your future, He's not asking you to figure it all out. He's inviting you to follow. Revelation is the roadmap, not the destination. It's the compass pointing you to where He's calling you to go, even if your feet have never walked that road before. But let's be honest, revelation will cost you. It will cost your comfort, your convenience, sometimes your current circle. Because when God opens your eyes to what could be, you can no longer be content with what has been. That's why some of you feel restless. You're not ungrateful. You're being called up. That vision is stretching you because it's supposed to. It's heaven's way of saying there's more in you than what you've settled for. And if you ever feel like you're the wrong person for the vision, let me remind you, God didn't make a mistake. He knew exactly who He was speaking to. He gave you that vision because He put in you what it would take to walk it out. Your job is not to qualify yourself, it's to trust the one who called you. The vision is revelation, not random. So don't treat it casually. Don't shelf it because it scares you. If it's bigger than you, that's because it's meant to be. Because the moment you say yes to the vision, the real yes, not the cute, churchy, rehearsed one, that's when distractions start multiplying. The kind of distractions that don't look like distractions at first. They come dressed as opportunities, as good things, as relationships that seem aligned, But the truth is, not everything that looks good is God, and the enemy doesn't always show up with horns. Sometimes he shows up with offers that pull your attention just far enough off the vision that you start drifting without even realizing it. Distraction is subtle. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It creeps in through frustration, through fatigue, through the fear that maybe, just maybe, what God showed you was too big for someone like you. And before you know it, you're entertaining things you were called to walk past. You're delaying things you were anointed to build. You're questioning things God already confirmed. That's the danger. The enemy doesn't have to destroy the vision. He just has to distort your focus. Sometimes distraction looks like comparison. You start scrolling and suddenly your vision doesn't feel so special anymore. Somebody else is doing something that looks similar and you start wondering, what's the point of mine? But hear me, similarity does not mean sameness. Just because someone else has a platform doesn't mean they carry your purpose. God doesn't duplicate assignments. He designs them intentionally. So if you abandon yours because someone else is visible, you're not just letting go of a dream. You're walking away from a divine responsibility. Other times, distraction looks like busyness. You're doing everything except what God told you to do. You're productive, but not purposeful. You're saying yes to every request, every event, every obligation, except the one thing that actually aligns with your vision. Family, busyness is not always fruitfulness. Sometimes it's avoidance in disguise. And if the enemy can't slow you down, he'll try to speed you up in the wrong direction. And can we be honest? Some distractions come from people we love, people who mean well. But not everyone who cares about you can carry the weight of your vision. And that's okay. Don't let their doubt become your direction. You have to know when to honor their concern and when to obey God anyway. Because destiny will demand that you protect your focus like it's sacred. Because it is. Distractions are not just about pulling you away. They're about making you believe the vision was never that serious in the first place. But you've got to stay rooted, stay locked in. Because detours might delay you, but distraction can derail you. And the vision is too costly for you to let that happen. Let me tell you something that we don't say enough in faith circles. Just because God gave you a clear vision doesn't mean the path will be clear. Clarity and ease are not married. They're not siblings. In fact, sometimes clarity invites conflict. Because the moment you start walking in what God showed you, everything around you may start to challenge what you know He said. That's not confusion, that's warfare. This vision is not just a pretty picture. It's a threat to the kingdom of darkness. When God reveals your assignment, He's not just giving you purpose. He's putting pressure on every lie the enemy has ever told you about yourself. That's why it gets harder right after the clarity comes. That's why the doors you thought would swing open start to resist. It's not because the vision isn't valid. It's because the enemy knows how powerful it is if you ever decide to walk it out in full obedience. So he brings pressure, resistance, warfare. Some of you thought you were under attack because you were doing something wrong. But can I flip that for you? Maybe the warfare is confirmation that you're doing something right. You're a threat now. You're not drifting anymore. You're not second guessing every word God said. You're not settling for what's safe. You're actually moving. And that movement, that alignment, that momentum, it disrupts the enemy's plan. It exposes every false identity he tried to assign you. But here's what we must understand. Warfare doesn't mean you missed it. It means you're being tested in it. God gave the vision, yes, but now he's growing your stamina to carry it. And that doesn't happen in comfort. It happens in conflict. In the moments when you feel like giving up, but you remember why you started. In the moments when everything feels silent, but you still hold on to the last thing God said. And let's be real, warfare isn't always external. Sometimes the loudest battle is in your own mind. Doubt, fear, insecurity. They come for you. They question your worth. They try to mute your voice. But if the enemy can't touch the vision, he'll try to touch your belief in it. He'll try to convince you that maybe you misheard God. That maybe this is too big, too complicated, too late. But he is a liar. And that's why your weapon isn't just your work. It's your faith, your obedience, your consistency, your refusal to fold just because the fire got hotter. Clarity from God doesn't come with a guarantee of ease. It comes with a promise of presence. God didn't say the vision would be effortless. He said he'd be with you in it. And that's where your confidence lives. Not in the absence of trouble, but in the assurance that you are not walking through it alone. The vision will be tested, stretched, refined, but it will not be broken if you refuse to back down. You know, one of the most faith-defining things about walking in divine vision is this. It doesn't always look like it's working. It doesn't always feel like it's forming. In fact, most of the time, it looks impossible, unreachable, too far out, too big for your background, too heavy for your hands. And yet, that's how God works. He shows you a glimpse of the finish before he walks you through the formless. He shows you the outcome, then leads you into process. And if you don't understand that, you'll question what he said, simply because it doesn't match what you see. Listen, vision isn't supposed to make sense to your natural mind. It's not supposed to fit into your logic. That's why it's vision, not a blueprint. God doesn't always give you the how. He gives you the what. And your obedience is what connects the two. But in that space between revelation and reality, doubt tries to settle in. You look at your resources, your resume, your current situation, and you start doing the math. You start asking, how, Lord, with this, with me? But family, God doesn't need your full equation. He needs your full surrender. What looks impossible to you is completely manageable to heaven. You think God is intimidated by a bank account, by a lack of connections, by your limited experience? Absolutely not. In fact, he specializes in using what shouldn't work to prove that he was the one behind it all along. He chooses the least likely, the overlooked, the underestimated, and breathes destiny into places that people wrote off. That's the kind of God we serve. But here's what makes it hard. We often want results that look like the vision before we've built the foundation for it. And so when it doesn't happen fast, we think it's not happening at all. But impossibility is part of the process. If you could do it without faith, it wouldn't be a God-sized vision. It'd just be a personal goal. And there's a difference. Vision demands belief that goes beyond what your eyes can see. That's why scripture tells us to walk by faith, not by sight. Because your sight will lie to you. It will say, this doesn't add up. You're too late. It's not working. But faith says, if God spoke it, it has to come to pass. And I need you to catch this. The impossible seasons are not an indictment against your calling. They're the proof that God's hand is on you. They're the stretching ground, the birthing ground, the testing ground. God isn't punishing you with difficulty. He's preparing you with it. Because when the vision starts to manifest, you won't just have the result, you'll have the resilience to sustain it. That's what makes it inevitable. Not because it always looked possible, but because you refused to let impossible have the final word. When God gives you a vision, he already sees the end from the beginning. He doesn't just see where you are, he sees where he's taking you. And here's the beauty of it. He's already made provision for what he's calling you to build. But catch this, provision isn't always visible at the start. It's not always sitting in your account or your connections. Provision doesn't always come before you move. More often than not, it meets you after you obey. That's the faith part. That's where trust gets real. Because we're used to operating from a place of certainty. We want to see it before we step. We want confirmation before commitment. But God doesn't build vision like that. He says, go, and then reveals what's next as you walk. That's why so many of us hesitate. We say, God, I'll obey when you provide. But heaven says, I'll provide as you obey. There's a divine order to this. Provision follows movement. Breakthrough follows trust. You see this all throughout Scripture. God tells Abraham to sacrifice Isaac, and provision doesn't appear before he climbs the mountain. It shows up on the mountain. After the obedience, the ram was already there, but Abraham had to move in faith to see it. That's how God works. He's not asking you to figure it out. He's asking you to trust that he already has. The vision he gave you is not something he expects you to fund on your own. It's something he's already resourced in the spirit. You just have to step into the place where it can be released. And let's be real. Sometimes provision doesn't look the way we expect. Sometimes it comes through people you didn't plan for. Opportunities you didn't see coming. A job you didn't think fit your journey. God is not limited to your preferences. His provision isn't always wrapped in predictability. It comes how he chooses, when he chooses, and through whom he chooses. Your job is not to control the how, it's to stay faithful to the what. But here's the warning. Delayed obedience can delay provision. Every time you second guess, every time you procrastinate on the instruction, every time you settle for comfort over calling, you push back what heaven already prepared for you. God's timing is perfect, yes, but sometimes we miss moments because we're waiting for everything to line up before we leap. Faith doesn't wait for ease. It responds to instruction. The provision is real. The vision is backed. You don't have to hustle to make it happen in your own strength. But you do have to move. You have to build. You have to obey. Because provision is waiting on the other side of your yes.